the weekly show with David J. Maloney.
This week, David talks with playwright and comedian Lewis Black.
And now, here's your host, David J. Maloney.
Welcome, everyone, to the weekly show. I'm your host, David J. Maloney. On tonight's show, we've got a really special guest. Most of us know him from his regular appearances on The Daily Show with Jon Stewart and now Trevor Noah. But the man is also an accomplished actor, playwright, and novelist, with many other accolades aside. His multiple comedy specials are still amassing millions of views on YouTube. Here with us again tonight to finish up our interview about his life, career, and probably whatever is currently pissing him off is legendary comedian Lewis Black. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. So how do you keep the angry man persona with such an unmenacing giggle? And where did the giggle come from? Because I laugh like my father. My wife laughs like her father. Did you inherit the giggle from somebody?
Probably my dad. I think so. And my brother. My brother laughed harder than I did. But my father, I think I got it from him.
Now, was there ever a point where, and obviously you've found great success, we're talking about Hannah and her sisters and some of the other things that came up. Was there a point in your career where you thought, oh, wow, I really need to start looking at a plan B?
No.
This was always this was the path, always and
there was
ever.
No plan B. You're talking to somebody who's nuts. There was no plan B. I just, once I went, I was broke. But I could get by when we were running the room. We were finally making what you'd make maybe as an off-Broadway actor. And I could get dinner there. And the only thing I really lacked for was if I'd gotten sick. I had no health insurance. So if I was sick, I would go to a clinic. But it never even fazed me. This is great. I'm happier than... But what are you going to give me that's going to make me happier? And because I was working a lot. I was working all the time, and down there, and we were running shows 6 nights a week, 7 nights a week, sometime, and then it was once I got into stand up, it was like, this is great, and I started to get paid. So when I got, when I made that transition, I was used to being broke, and I was lucky because I transitioned quickly from, I had some gigs as a middle act, the guy in the middle, and that didn't pay as much, but I went pretty much quickly into being a headliner, and in enough places, not A rooms, but B rooms, and that really helped. And so I was not gonna. There was never a plan B. Once I got out of, I always felt I'll get by. This is too important. I can't do anything else. The only thing that I might have done, and which is the plan B was with theater, is that I'd get a job teaching, and that was impossible to get a job teaching.
Now, you landed a role alongside some of the biggest names in the business in Woody Allen's Hannah and Her Sisters. How did that opportunity come about?
Julia Taylor, who's probably one of the and I don't say this because she cast me, you just go through her films, he's even said it himself, was one of the great casting directors. And she would come to see the shows at the West Bank where we were doing stuff. And she really liked me, and she liked my friend Rusty. And so she said, you two are going to be in a Woody Allen film someday. I went, oh yeah, right, okay, great. it was terrific. That could get you through. The great thing about, to me, is that you could make shit up, and I would go, oh, okay, whether you could be lying to me. It was a great lie. I used to tell my agent, just tell me somebody called. You don't have to. It doesn't have to be real. Just pretend. And so within a year, 2 years, we were in. She cast us in Hannah. Rusty plays a drugged out guy. It's that first shot where we're going down the hallway, and we come out of the elevator. It's me and Christian Clemens. He'd not been in a movie. John Turturro's in that scene. J.T. Walsh is in that scene. Julie Kavner, Julie Louise-Dreyfus. It was kind of unbelievable.
How did you eventually get your first appearance on The Daily Show with Jon Stewart?
I was on before John. So John really, if it weren't for me, John wouldn't have had a show. So I'm the one who kept the whole thing propped up. It was all on my shoulders. No, I was there when Craig Kilborn started from the very beginning. I was there from like the first or second week on, and it was Liz Winstead and my friend Hank Gallo, who was the producer, and Liz Winstead was the creator. Liz knew my work. I'd been in clubs. They needed people who could pump out material. I had pounds of material. So they asked me to come in each week or I can't remember, if it was each week or every other week. And, what we need you to do is do a kind of my editorial, which is what I did initially. No audience. And I would sit there and I wouldn't write it out. And I would do it, and then I would do it again. Because I work in front of an audience, but even there I knew my bit, so I would kind of convert it to what we were doing there, and I could talk about what I wanted to talk about. So I go there and blow out this and this and this, and we do it one time, and then they go, keep this, drop that, do that, do it, keep this, do that, drop that, did it again. All right, keep this, this, and this, and then finally about the fourth one, done. And then they brought in an audience. I started writing it. And then once I started in that, then we'd work on it, and they would help me do the edit. And then I made then I said to them, what I really wanted to do, which nobody listened to, has been the story of my career. What I wanted to do was to do a summary of the news at the end of the week. Like, give me 4 minutes and let's go through the news. And let's take the jokes that have been thrown away, because they would throw away pounds of really good stuff. Pounds. And give me those, and I'll do that. And they said, no, what we got is what they had at that time was a ton of footage early on with Kilborn, and the footage at that point was free. And so what they got was all of these weird kind of things like squirrels on skis and all this kind of bizarro stuff, and they put it together and throw that stuff at me, and gave me two writers and Hank as the producer, and we'd lock up for an afternoon and come up with a thing, and that became Back in Black.
So you've outlasted then Kilborn, Stewart. Now you're with Trevor Noah. Yeah. I think he's done an incredible job, especially having to follow Jon Stewart. Yes. Some people were kind of questioning choosing him to take over the show at the start, but he had worked with you guys before that happened. What did you think of the decision at that point in time? Did you feel, yeah, this is gonna work? Well, I know the guy.
I didn't know Trevor well enough to believe it was going to work. I didn't know. But I thought this. I always think this. Okay. I was on the show. You're going to bring in a new person to be the face of that show. Okay. I had done very well in my position. Okay. But I'm in the barking dog position. So just bring me in to audition. You don't have to give me the job. Just let me audition, you jackasses. I've been on this show. And then say no. That's all. That's all I'm asking. And so I did it once. When John, they didn't ask me to do it. Then when John left, he didn't ask me to do it. But I thought maybe, I kind of went, I thought maybe Samantha Bee at that point would be an interesting choice. I thought her or John Oliver.
Yeah, because John had already filled in for him when he was making that movie,
John had
right?
filled in, and John Oliver was great. And Samantha is with her own show, you can see she's terrific. And it would have been, both of those would have given that, we already knew with John what we were going to get. And with John, it was less of a leap, in a sense, but with a different sensibility, for sure. I think that John is another just brilliant mind. Samantha would have been great. And I didn't know enough about Trevor. And then it's worked out great.
Yeah. In that same vein, you've been on or around a lot of the other late night talk shows, Letterman, Leno, Colbert, Fallon, Ferguson. who I don't want to say who impressed you the most. I guess I should ask instead, which host did you click with the best, I guess?
Craig Kilborn. I mean, Craig Kilborn. No, I mean Craig
Ferguson.
Yeah, no, Craig Kilborn and I never clicked. But Craig Ferguson and I got along just spectacularly. And part of it was because he just talked to me. Because I never understood the question, and that you prepare for an interview. What do we, did you call me up and say, what are we going to do? What planet are we on? Okay, you have a conversation. One can rely on this. You bring somebody on. I mean, I kind of, after a while, I mean, I get it if I'm on like Conan for the first time, the second time. By the third time, come on.
Well,
Me.
because there's this premise of setups, right? When there's a comedian on, there's the whole premise of setups, which I was kind of debating, when I knew you were coming on the show. I'm like, okay, so, normally this would be my style of interview. But sometimes with a comedian, sometimes there are people say they want some setups. I'd rather just ask you these questions.
No, and when people say, do you want me to, what setups do you want to go? Just talk to me. I'll find a joke somewhere. And in part, some of the time you just want to have a conversation. I was on with Ferguson. This is what used to make, and to me, it's what made, Jack Paar, for whatever you think of Jack Paar, is that when I was a kid, I'm watching him, I'm like, it was just that they would talk. And, you had on people like for 100 shows. I mean, some of these people, you have up to 100 shows. They would come back and be the other guest. They weren't the sidekick, but they'd be the kind of the sidekick. And they just have conversations. And so with Craig, that's what we had. And one night we're on there, we're rolling along, and Craig goes, we discover we were living in the East Village at the same time. What bar, and he was drinking heavily at that time, and I was drinking, and we eventually found out that we spent a lot of time at the same bar and never
bumped into each other.
Never bumped into each other, but didn't know each other at the time either. But never cried. We never talked. We were both sitting on our plate wherever we were, and that's a great moment. That's a real moment on TV, and what makes for something special. Okay, it's why people use this. Is for that instant. Please, let's get a grip. Television can still do it, but I mean, and when they want me to do one of those shows, it's kind of like then you've got to sit there and deconstruct your act to put it back together, to do it as a way, as a twofer. You're doing it as a two-hander.
I want to ask you about the Support the Troops tour you went on with Robin Williams. Did you get to spend a fair amount of time with him on that trip?
Yeah, I did. It was really it was the Christmas tour, and that was really where I got to spend time with Robin. And
is there a particular memory that stands out to you about Robin, about that trip?
The amount of energy that he brought to it, and the amount of care that he gave, the amount of love he had for those folks. I mean, his energy was astonishing, and we would come to a place that I'm dying. It was, like 8 shows, 7 days, 6 countries, and we'd be in I love to say chopper. We'd be in a chopper, and he would jump out of the chopper and race up to the troops and just start bam, 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 bam. If you want to see what he was like, just in terms of being there, you go to the Good Morning Vietnam and watch the last scene of him leaving the troops, and that's exactly what he was like. And he had a great big heart and a brilliant mind and a photographic memory, which I think got him into trouble from time to time.
When I met Robin a few years back, I asked him a question I'd like to ask you as well.
Sure.
From a comedic standpoint, what would you say is the funniest thing you've ever said or done, or seen anyone else in the business say or do?
I can't tell you one of them because I could remember the joke. I can't remember jokes. One of the great ones to me was, that it was Kathleen Madigan, when we were in Afghanistan, I think it was. I think she did it there first. Was is that, you've done this for these people and this. You brought them roads. You brought them houses. You brought teaching. You've done this and the water and yada yada. And so when the troops get back, it'd be a good idea. Why don't you invade Detroit? I mean, that's the first one that comes to mind is hers. But there were, somebody just asked me that question, and it was the one that I said the bit was the seven words you can't do on television by George Carlin, and I think it's the 5 stages of drunkenness by Larry Miller, which you can get online, which is just the finest crafted Tonight Show bit or late night show bit I've ever watched in my life. It's spectacular.
Just for kicks, I'd like to throw out a name, and you tell me the first thought or memory that comes to mind.
Sure.
Okay. Carlin.
Brilliant.
Seinfeld.
Different.
Pryor.
Unique, extraordinary.
Billy Crystal.
Wow. Entertainer.
Carson.
Old school entertainer. Carson just got it.
Lily Tomlin.
Adore.
So you had a great and hilarious role in Pixar's Inside Out as Anger. I wonder why they thought Anger would be a good role for you. How did that role come about? What made you take it?
What made me take it was that they're the greatest animation group in the country, and that it's Anger. So what are you going to turn that down? Also, their humility when they asked me, they sent me a whole box of stuff, and they said, you may not be familiar with us. And I was like, wow, you don't even see people like this in Los Angeles. It's like, you are so lucky you're here with me. They were really about, we really would like to work with you. I don't know if you really what the kind of work, and they sent me a ton of their stuff that I'd already seen. It was, and I was like, and even they sent a part of the script, which was not ready to be seen. And I read it and I thought, wow, I'm going to be in their first bomb. That'll be unique. And so they had just started to really get to work on it, and that they were going to spend 5 years doing it, which explained everything about them as a group. And they weren't in Los Angeles. Good for you. And that then when I went and talked to them, they said, when they were pitching this to Disney, which was part of the deal, was that they said, imagine, the first one they said was, imagine Louis Black as Anger. And that was the final key. And then, of course, the way they get you is say, well, you're going to be immortal. Whoa, well, who passes that up?
Where did the whole finger thing come from? I mean, you've got the most active fingers in the industry, with perhaps the exception of Paul Rubens. Yes,
I'd have no idea. And I seriously, the first time I ever was conscious of it was coming upstairs from the comedy stop at the Trop in Atlantic City, and people were doing that at me, and I turned to my friend and said, what's that? And they said, well, that's what you do on stage. I don't do that. I wasn't conscious of it. I just did it. It was just the way I kind of expressed things. And then it took me a while to get over the fact I was doing it. Now it's back to like, I don't know, I'm doing it.
What have you got coming up? What's coming up in the future? Is it more Daily Show? Are you going to be getting it back out and about again now that things are starting to loosen up?
I have, folks can go to lewisblack.com. I hate saying that, but they can, and get a real sense of what I'm up to. I have a thing called a Rantcast. I've done 93 of them, which are I read rants that were written by the audience. I'm reading them now. If I'm coming to your area, just know that I make a concerted effort to read the rants written by you, the folks in the area, so it becomes the show about, if I'm in, like when I was in Biloxi, it was the Biloxi show. It was either Biloxi or the Mississippi show, or anybody who lived near there, or, that's the kind of way I go at it. and that's really been really important to me, is being able to express the anger of other individuals. And it's really, and it's what I know, and it's what kept me sane during the pandemic, because that I didn't need an audience for. I know how to read a rant, and they know and they got better and better in writing them. And so that's one of the things on the board. And the tour starts again September 15th up north, and I'll be heading into where Waterville, Maine is one of the stops. Rutland, Vermont. The first stop is Northampton, Massachusetts, and I can't wait to get back on the road. And then there's something else coming up that I can't talk about, but folks are I can guarantee you this: when they hear about it, they'll be very excited.
That is very, very cool. And everyone, I'm sure, will look forward to hearing whatever that is.
Yeah,
Louis, thank you so much for joining us. You've been fantastic as always. Ladies and gentlemen, Louis Black.
Thank you, David. Thank you very much.
Looks like it took. I know you got to run. I was going to share what Robin told me, but I know you got to blow out.
What did he tell you?
His favorite joke was George Carlin's opening line to the first Comic Relief.
Wow.
He said that, if you remember, that was the very first one they were doing HBO. They didn't know what they could do, censorship or not. All the comedians were nervous about what they were going to do or not, but what they were going to be able to say and not say. Carlin was opening. So after Whoopi, Billy, and Robin gets up and starts doing their thing, and they do the MC thing, they intro him, he gets up, and remember, this was for starving people. Mm-hmm. George Carlin's opening line was anorexia. I don't get it. Why should I give a f if some rich doesn't want to eat?
Wow.
And so the brilliance of he broke all the barriers. Yeah. He threaded the needle. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He opened the door for everybody else the rest of the time, and he told a joke about anorexia in a telethon for starving people.
Perfect. He's so sweet.
Robin told me, he says, if you look back, he goes, you'll actually see me fall. Like he literally falls to the ground. Like he loses his legs and falls to the ground.
And that's true. He would do that.